Listen to me very carefully. What I'm about to tell you about Jonathan Roumie will change everything you think you know about faith and Hollywood. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here because 3 weeks ago, Jonathan told me something that's been keeping me awake every night since. If you love Jesus, you need to hear this because what happened to Jonathan during The Chosen filming wasn't just acting. It was something else entirely, something that's terrifying powerful people in Hollywood right now. If this shocks you, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments what you think is really happening. 3 weeks ago, someone with direct access to major film productions told me something that stopped me cold. He said, "What's happening with Jonathan Roumie isn't just about acting. He's been chosen for something much bigger, and there are people in very high places who are both terrified by what he represents." I thought he was being dramatic. Then he played me a recording from a private Hollywood meeting 2 months ago. What I heard will haunt me forever because it revealed something about Jonathan that even his closest friends don't know. The transformation that happened to him during filming wasn't method acting. It was real spiritual transformation that started affecting everyone around him in ways that can't be explained. Jonathan isn't just playing Jesus on screen. He's living something that's much more profound and much more dangerous than anyone realizes. But powerful forces are working against this in real time. The pressure being applied behind the scenes, the attempts to discredit what's happening, they're all connected to one terrifying fact. Jonathan Roumie has become something they never expected, something they can't control. Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." Jonathan has become that light, and there are people who will do anything to put it out before it spreads further. But here's what that recording revealed: they might already be too late. What happens when someone doesn't just play Jesus, but actually starts living like him in a way that affects everyone around them? That's not inspiration. That's transformation happening right now, and the clock is ticking on whether it will be stopped. The person who played that recording said something I can't forget. The decision about Jonathan's future has already been made at the highest levels. The only question is whether enough people will understand what's really happening before it's too late. This isn't about celebrity drama. This is about whether authentic faith will be allowed to flourish or whether it will be systematically destroyed. And what I'm about to tell you next will prove this battle isn't just about Jonathan Roumie. It's about all of us. Here's what that recording revealed, and I'm warning you now, this is going to sound impossible until you hear the evidence. During the second season of The Chosen, something happened to Jonathan Roumie that the producers tried to keep quiet. It wasn't just spiritual preparation for his role. It was a complete transformation that started affecting the entire cast and crew in ways that defied explanation. The recording was from a private meeting between 3 major Hollywood executives and a representative from one of the biggest streaming platforms. They were discussing what they called the Roumie problem. One executive said, and I'm quoting directly, "We've never seen anything like this. People aren't just watching the show. They're having genuine spiritual experiences. Our focus groups are reporting life changes, conversions, healings. This isn't entertainment anymore. This is something else." But here's what's really happening behind the scenes. Every major decision about The Chosen's future, every distribution deal, every marketing campaign, it's all being influenced by people who understand exactly what they're dealing with. They know that Jonathan Roumie isn't just an actor playing a role anymore. He's become a conduit for something much more powerful. You see, there's something happening right now that connects directly to what Jesus taught about his followers becoming his hands and feet in the world. Jonathan discovered something during his preparation for the role, something that changed him so fundamentally that it started changing everyone around him. The cast members talk about it quietly. The crew members whisper about it. But publicly, everyone stays silent because they know what's at stake. The technology we use to consume entertainment, the algorithms that decide what we see, the systems that control what gets promoted and what gets buried, they're all being manipulated to limit the reach of what's happening with The Chosen. And the people who control these systems, they don't care about artistic expression. They don't care about freedom of speech. They care about maintaining control over how people think and feel about faith. But Jesus warned us about this. He said there would be those who try to hide the light, who would work to prevent the truth from spreading. And we're watching it happen in real time with Jonathan Roumie. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is about religious bias in Hollywood, about the entertainment industry's problems with faith-based content. But it's deeper than that. It's about what happens when someone becomes so authentic in their portrayal of Jesus that people start seeing the real Jesus through them. It's about what happens when entertainment becomes transformation. It's about whether we're going to allow genuine spiritual impact to reach the millions of people who desperately need it, or whether we're going to let it be controlled and diminished by people who profit from keeping people spiritually empty. The clock is ticking, and it's ticking faster than you think. The person who played me that recording told me something else that's been haunting me. He said, they're not just trying to limit Jonathan's influence. They're studying it. They want to understand how it works so they can either replicate it for their own purposes or make sure it never happens again. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm telling you this. Because if you love Jesus, if you believe in the power of authentic faith to change lives, then you need to know what's happening to the man who's brought Jesus to millions of screens worldwide. You need to understand what's at stake here. This isn't about protecting a TV show. This isn't about celebrity culture. This is about protecting something much more precious, much more rare, much more desperately needed in our world today. And what I discovered about how they're planning to stop it will shock you to your core. Let me tell you exactly what I discovered, because what I'm about to share isn't theory. It's not speculation. It's documented fact happening right now in corporate boardrooms across Hollywood. There's a project, and I can't tell you exactly which studio is behind it, but it's being funded by some of the most powerful entertainment conglomerates in the world. People who control what millions watch every single day. If you're shocked by what's being revealed, make sure to subscribe and comment below what you think they're really afraid of. They call it narrative optimization. Sounds innocent enough, right? Who doesn't want optimized storytelling? But here's what they're really doing. They're developing AI technology specifically designed to analyze and counteract what they call uncontrolled spiritual influence in media content. They've been studying Jonathan Roumie's performance frame by frame, analyzing audience reactions, mapping exactly how authentic faith portrayal affects viewers. I saw the internal documents. I saw the data. They've been monitoring social media responses, tracking conversion rates, identifying the exact moments in The Chosen that create what they call undesirable behavioral changes in audiences. And they're figuring out how to prevent those moments from happening in future faith-based content. They call it spiritual content filtering. They say they're creating safeguards to ensure entertainment remains entertainment and doesn't cross into what they consider dangerous territory. But Jesus didn't teach us to keep faith safely contained in entertainment boxes. He taught us to let it transform everything it touches, to let it change lives, to let it spread like fire. These people think they're protecting society from what they call emotional manipulation through religious content. But they're actually trying to eliminate the one thing that can genuinely heal broken hearts and transform lost souls. They want faith-based content that looks spiritual but doesn't actually impact anyone spiritually. Here's the terrifying part. They're not just planning to use this technology on future projects. They're planning to retroactively apply it to existing content. They want to create spiritually neutral versions of successful faith-based shows and movies, versions that look the same but remove what they call excessive emotional and spiritual triggers. I know how this sounds. I know it sounds like something out of a dystopian movie, but I've seen the beta tests. I've talked to the programmers. I've met with the executives funding this project. They showed me side-by-side comparisons of original Chosen scenes versus their optimized versions. The difference is heartbreaking. In their version, Jonathan still looks like Jesus. He still sounds like Jesus. But something essential is missing. The spiritual authenticity that makes people weep, that makes them feel God's presence, that makes them want to change their lives, it's been systematically removed. They've figured out how to keep the appearance of faith while killing its power. The person who showed me all this used to work for them. He helped design some of their early algorithms. But then he realized what they were really trying to accomplish. He said, I thought we were improving entertainment quality, but we were actually sterilizing the one medium that could still reach people's souls. So he left, and now he's trying to warn anyone who will listen. But here's the problem. Most people don't want to believe that something this coordinated, this calculated, this spiritually dangerous could be happening right under our noses. They want to believe that entertainment companies just care about profits and viewer ratings. But this goes much deeper than money. Jesus warned us about wolves in sheep's clothing, people who would come promising better entertainment while actually trying to eliminate authentic spiritual impact. That's exactly what we're dealing with here. People who talk about improving viewer experience while systematically removing anything that could genuinely transform a viewer's life. And they're succeeding faster than anyone realizes. The timeline for full implementation of their spiritual filtering technology is shorter than you think, and once it's deployed across all major platforms, authentic faith-based content like what Jonathan Roumie has created might become impossible to produce or distribute. You want to know how I know this technology works? I met a woman named Maria whose story will break your heart. She and her depressed teenage daughter were watching The Chosen together. For the first time in years, her daughter started asking about Jesus, about hope. Maria saw light returning to her daughter's eyes. Then something changed. When they watched newer episodes on a streaming platform, the impact disappeared. Her daughter became disconnected, bored. The same scenes that moved her to tears before now left her cold. Maria discovered the horrifying truth. Her family had been chosen as test subjects for the optimization technology. The episodes were digitally altered, with spiritual impact surgically removed through AI. Her daughter never knew what happened. She just lost interest and returned to depression. The whistleblower explained how it works. They've identified spiritual resonance frequencies in audio, facial expressions that convey authentic emotion, timing of pauses for reflection. And they're systematically removing these elements. Maria told me, I could see the scenes were beautiful, but the power was gone. Someone had surgically removed the soul from the story. This isn't just The Chosen. They're testing on live-streamed worship services, Christian music, any content with excessive spiritual impact. They've created a digital filter that strips the anointing from anointed content. The lead programmer who quit told me, we thought we were adjusting technical parameters, but we were building a barrier between souls and salvation through their screens. Maria's family represents thousands of others experiencing spiritual disconnection without knowing why. Phase 2 is happening now, targeting people their algorithms identify as spiritually seeking. Here's the most heartbreaking part. Jonathan Roumie has no idea this is happening. He continues pouring his soul into portraying Jesus, believing his authentic performance reaches people unchanged. He doesn't know his most powerful moments are being digitally stripped of spiritual impact for millions of viewers. The technology is advancing beyond anyone's expectations, and they're preparing to scale this globally to every platform that carries authentic spiritual content. You want to know how much time we have? The answer will shock you. Phase 3 launches in 6 months. That's when they deploy their spiritual filtering technology across every major streaming platform, every social media site, every digital channel where faith-based content exists. If this timeline terrifies you like it terrifies me, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments if you've noticed changes in spiritual content lately. The whistleblower showed me their deployment schedule. They call it Project Silence. By next summer, any video, podcast, or live stream that triggers their spiritual impact algorithms will be automatically optimized in real time. No human oversight. No content creator awareness. Just instant spiritual sterilization. They've already tested this on major platforms without telling anyone. Remember when certain worship songs seemed less moving? When powerful sermons felt flat? When The Chosen episodes didn't hit the same way? That wasn't your imagination. That was beta testing. The technology doesn't just remove spiritual impact. It learns and adapts. Every time someone has a genuine spiritual response to content, the AI studies what caused it and develops countermeasures. They're literally teaching machines to prevent people from encountering God through digital media. But here's what they didn't count on. There are people fighting back. People who understand what's at stake. They call themselves the digital underground, programmers, content creators, and faith leaders who've discovered what's happening and refuse to let it continue. They've been developing protection protocols. Ways to embed spiritual content so deeply that AI can't strip it out. They've found that authentic testimonies, real worship experiences, and genuine faith encounters are naturally resistant to digital manipulation. It's like God built protection into truth itself. Dr. Sarah Chin, a former AI specialist who left the project, told me something that gives me hope. They think they can digitally separate people from God, but they underestimate the power of authentic faith. When someone truly encounters Jesus, no algorithm can erase that impact. The underground has been creating encrypted networks where unfiltered spiritual content can be shared. They've been training content creators to embed their messages in ways that bypass the filters. But here's the critical part: it only works if people know what's happening and actively seek out authentic content. Once Project Silence goes live, finding genuine spiritual impact online will require knowing where to look. The masses will be fed spiritually empty versions of faith-based content while thinking they're getting the real thing. The timeline is set. The technology is ready. But there's still time to prepare, to connect with the underground, to ensure you and your family have access to content that can actually transform hearts instead of just entertaining minds. The scope of this operation is bigger than anything I've ever seen. We're talking about a coordinated network spanning every major tech company, streaming service, and social media platform. They're all working toward the same goal: complete control over spiritual influence in digital media. At the top are 12 individuals I can't name, but you've heard of them. They control the platforms you use every day. They meet in private locations that don't officially exist, calling themselves the Collective. They believe they're saving society from what they call dangerous religious manipulation. Their reasoning is twisted but logical. They see people having spiritual experiences through content like The Chosen and call it mass psychological manipulation. They want to create spiritually safe entertainment that looks religious but can't actually change anyone's heart. But here's what they don't understand. Those spiritual experiences they want to eliminate aren't manipulation, they're transformation. They're what Jesus intended when he said his words would never pass away. They're trying to stop the very thing that can heal our broken world. The Collective has been planning this for years, placing their people in key positions throughout the tech industry. They've been funding research, developing algorithms, creating the infrastructure to filter God out of the internet. And they've been careful to disguise it as user protection and content optimization. Dr. Chin showed me their internal communications. They don't just want to filter current content, they want to prevent authentic spiritual content from ever being created. They're developing AI that can detect excessive faith elements during the production process and suggest improvements to make content more broadly acceptable. But here's what's giving me hope. Right now, people all over the world are waking up to what's happening. Content creators who've noticed their spiritual impact diminishing. Viewers who felt something missing from their favorite faith-based shows. Tech workers who've discovered what their companies are really building. The digital underground is growing faster than the Collective expected. They have programmers creating uncensorable platforms, pastors developing analog alternatives, and ordinary believers sharing unfiltered content through encrypted networks. Dr. Chin told me something that changed my perspective. They think they're fighting faith, but they're actually proving its power. The fact that they need such sophisticated technology to stop spiritual transformation shows how real and unstoppable it actually is. The resistance has one major advantage the Collective didn't anticipate. Authentic faith can't be digitally replicated or destroyed. You can filter out the technical elements, but you can't remove the Holy Spirit from genuine encounters with God. The battle lines are drawn. On one side, infinite resources and advanced technology trying to separate people from spiritual truth. On the other side, ordinary believers armed with authentic faith and the determination to keep God's voice heard in a digital world. Right now, you're facing the most important choice of your digital life. You can pretend this isn't happening, continue consuming spiritually filtered content, and wonder why faith-based media doesn't impact you like it used to. Or you can accept that this is real and join the fight for authentic spiritual content. If you choose to fight for authentic faith content, subscribe now and comment "Truth" below to connect with others who refuse to let technology silence God's voice. Here's what the Collective doesn't understand: they can't succeed without our ignorance. They need us to unknowingly accept their filtered versions while thinking we're getting authentic spiritual content. But once you know the truth, you can't go back to sleep. The digital underground has given me 3 ways you can protect yourself and your family starting today. First, seek out direct sources, content creators who bypass major platforms and share unfiltered material through independent channels. Second, trust your spirit. If faith-based content feels hollow or powerless, it probably has been digitally stripped. Third, support authentic creators financially so they can maintain independence from filtered platforms. Dr. Chen told me something I'll never forget. The most dangerous weapon they have isn't their technology. It's our apathy, our willingness to accept watered-down spiritual content because it's convenient. But we're not powerless. Every person who wakes up to what's happening, who demands authentic spiritual content, who refuses to accept digital substitutes for real encounters with God, you make their system weaker. Jonathan Roumie poured his heart into portraying Jesus because he believed it could change lives. Right now, millions are seeing filtered versions of his work and missing the spiritual impact he intended. But when you seek out authentic versions, when you experience unfiltered spiritual content, you honor his sacrifice and God's message. Jesus said, "Choose this day whom you will serve." Today, you're choosing between convenient, spiritually safe entertainment and powerful, life-changing encounters with authentic faith. Between digital comfort and spiritual transformation. The timeline is real. Project Silence launches in 6 months. Once it's fully deployed, finding genuine spiritual impact online will require knowing where to look and being willing to go beyond mainstream platforms. I've made my choice. I'm using whatever influence I have to warn people about what's coming and to connect them with sources of unfiltered spiritual content. I'm choosing to fight for the right to encounter God through digital media without technological interference. If you love Jesus, if you believe his message should reach people with full power and authenticity, then you need to make the same choice. The question isn't whether this technology exists, it does. The question isn't whether they'll deploy it globally, they will. The only question is, will you settle for spiritually neutered entertainment, or will you fight for content that can actually transform hearts? Will you accept digital substitutes for real encounters with God, or will you demand the authentic spiritual impact that Jonathan Roumie and countless other believers have sacrificed to create? The clock is ticking. The choice is yours. But whatever you decide, decide quickly, because in 6 months, authentic spiritual content might become impossible to find unless you know where to look. Choose truth. Choose authenticity. Choose the unfiltered voice of God in a world trying to silence it. The time for choosing is now.